Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.
You ready?
I'm ready.
We just go into stuff.
Okay.
Thanks for being here. Well, thank you for being here.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So many questions.
Okay.
So many questions.
First
off, you are probably one of the most highly recommended guests I've had on this show. Everybody I talk to in comedy in Pittsburgh says, I have to have you on here. And I said, she's on my list, people. Haven't got to her yet. But thank you again.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, so let's just do this in reverse. Like, comedy's starting back up again, right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is.
And you probably are dying for that to happen after being off for over a year now. Is that right?
I am. I missed it. Because I was getting a little bit of momentum, I felt, before the pandemic. I was actually supposed to do my very first comedy festival with Burning Bridges Comedy Club on March 15th, I think, or March 19th. And on March 12th is when everything shut down.
That's the magic date. Yeah. That's the magic date.
So...
yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah. So has it really picked up like right where it left off? Because some people feel like it has, and some folks are saying, no, it feels goofy. We're not there yet. It's going to take a while. What's your thoughts on that? In terms of the comedy world performing out again?
I think it's a mixture because I do think that, in my experience, it seems like people are really wanting to come to shows even more than they did before. And I think shows are doing pretty well before. I mean, I have a limited experience to some extent, but I think a lot of people want to come watch shows. And then I think with comedy, I think it's just where you were and what you did during the pandemic. For some people, I think that they just kind of took a break. And so some people have been saying like it's a little bit rusty, which it is for all of us because we haven't been on stage in a while. But some people did like some of the Zoom shows, which don't
Let's talk
count.
about that. They don't count.
Like they do. I'm not going to say that because I have had like some success a little bit with the Zoom
so you
shows.
did them?
Yeah, I did. And I was just not telling anyone about them. I was just doing them in other states.
Oh, really? Okay. So, but are they out there in the ether somewhere we can find them?
Oh, actually, maybe. Yeah. There's one I was doing in Minnesota. And they I didn't know they recorded them and put them on YouTube, but like all of them are there, I think.
Well, how would you have found the group in Minnesota?
Well,
were you intentionally trying to get out of the area on Zoom?
So I wasn't intentionally trying to get out, but it was like there was like this group that started and I got added to it on like some comedian group. I really don't know a lot about it. I just started seeing postings in it.
Okay.
And so they would say, oh, we have like the Zoom showcase that we're doing in such and such area at such and such time. So you're doing things in other time zones. So I almost got confused a couple of times. But like the one in Minnesota, it's the Monday night comedy show and it's with Nanataco Studios. And I would have never heard of like this show or anything unless they did the Zoom. They were doing residency. So they let comics come and do 5 weeks or 8 weeks of new material every week. And then at the end, you do like 10 minutes. And it was kind of cool because I did come up with some new material based on that.
Okay.
So it just kind of forced you to actually do it. And I wouldn't have done that if I didn't have that.
You went there?
Oh, no, it was on Zoom. It was all online.
Oh, so that social distancing thing. So talk to me about doing a Zoom show.
It's different because I don't know. Part of it's like, okay, if I can't hear anyone laughing, that's fine because I muted the thing so I don't have echo on my computer.
Okay.
But you can hear. It depends on the show you're doing, and I also think it just depends on the room and what your expectations are. I have very low expectations. I was just like, I should probably do some kind of comedy during this time because I will be so nervous when we go back. It won't be fun.
Okay.
And so it was kind of fun doing shows. Like I did some in Minnesota. I did one in California.
No kidding.
Just like I can't remember where the other shows are based. I think that the people were based in different areas and they just started doing shows. Like I did some shows with Aaron Kleiber and Helen Wilde.
Another gentleman who recommended you.
Oh, they're all so nice. Very nice.
See, Aaron, there she is. I told you she was scheduled to come in here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But he had a Zoom show, but I can't remember exactly where it was located. I do know it was in the Midwest. But you just kind of have to set your own expectations for the shows and just see what works. Some shows went really well, and you could make some money on some of these shows. Like some of these shows are like, these pay better than the in-person shows I was doing.
Well, I think that everybody is starving for entertainment probably. I just wonder because musicians also did virtual stuff, and I saw it done really well. And I saw some train wrecks, so the feedback I had heard in some interviews from musicians is that it was just hard without having that feedback. And I get it as a guitar player. When you're playing live, there's something about people digging what you're doing, and there's a feedback there. But with comedy, it's got to be even more amplified, right?
Yeah, because you can't hear the laughs in real time, so there would be a delay. Like you always have someone whose Wi-Fi is a little bit down. So you're getting a little delay.
Latency.
Which a little latency. I remember also, some people, I think they forgot that they said they were going to go to these comedy shows and then they would come, but they definitely had other plans. Like I remember one guy fell asleep during the show and everyone noticed and we couldn't wake him up and it was hilarious. But, so yeah, it's a little bit, I've never had someone fall asleep at a show I was on in person. so it's different.
Okay.
It's different.
Now, in your act, do you engage with the audience? Are you a stand-up that engages?
Not a ton.
Okay.
I'm not as much a crowd work person, mostly because I don't think I'm a very good roaster. Like all my roasts are very not roast. They're just me saying
so
things.
you don't have that attack gene in you.
No, I do not.
But you were a prosecutor at one time in your life, right?
Yeah.
But you don't have the attack gene.
I don't. And that was something I had to work on as an attorney as well, because
really,
you don't want to call someone a liar. Like that's harsh.
You're
but
too
if
nice.
you have to, I will do it. I am aggressive in the courtroom. I do what I have to do. Like I feel like I'm a good rule follower, and when there are rules, I know how to execute those rules and do what I need to do.
Okay.
But when you're doing things like stand-up comedy, I'm like, I don't know what the rules are about me talking
Are
to you.
there any?
Are you going to get mad? Because if you get mad, I can't handle it.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Okay.
So
Okay. Well, I'm trying to understand this Zoom thing still in my head. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. So, did you do them like at your place, at your home?
Yes.
And it's just with a Zoom, just with a webcam?
Yes.
And you go into your material?
Yeah.
And are you seeing like groups of people on the screen? Or are you listening for an audience? What are you...
It depends, because some places were doing them actually through the app Zoom, and so you could see like the gallery view and you could actually see the audience, and that was fine. And then you had I actually really liked the way some of the other shows did them, like the Nantaco Studios, because they did it through some other app, and so you could see some of the audience, but they were also live streaming to Facebook and YouTube. So you would get comments, and comments actually, especially because they were really nice, supportive group, and like so if they liked your jokes, they were going to tell you they liked your jokes, and like what part of your joke you like. So it was kind of cool because you could actually get some feedback,
constructive feedback that you could use.
Yeah, like something where it's just like, okay, you like that line, and you're not heckling me. This is great. Like you're not yelling back, which I know not everyone who heckles is trying to be mean or rude. Sometimes they just like the joke and they're like, oh, that's funny, and some people repeat it. But it's cool to get that feedback in real time.
Okay.
And then go off of that.
How did you encounter any mean hecklers in your Zoom shows?
No.
Oh.
I don't think so. I don't get a lot of hecklers.
I wouldn't think
general.
so.
I've had a couple. Sometimes the thing. I don't know why people don't heckle me. Well, I don't want them to start.
Are you baiting them there?
I don't think so. But I don't want them to start heckling either. There's not a lot of hecklers in Pittsburgh. I haven't seen it happen too many times.
That's good to hear.
I don't think. Like there's that show that It was like Ed Bailey and Dee Breeze who
Yeah,
would do
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah.
I can't
The
remember
Drinking
what's called.
Partners.
The Drinking Partners. Yeah, the Drinking Partners.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the name of the show is right now. It's like, it's the heckling show. It's the show where you go and it's all crowd work, and they have to encourage people to heckle sometimes. But like once they do encourage them to heckle, some people do it a little too much. But it's not, from the shows I went to, it doesn't happen a ton, and that's in a situation where you were told to heckle.
Okay. I was always afraid to sit up front at the Funny Bone. I'm dating myself now. The Funny Bone or the Improv, because I knew first couple tables I was gonna get it, and so I would eat like the last table in the corner. And sometimes they seek you out.
Yes, they do. I've been sought out. It's like, oh
really?
goodness.
Yeah, I know. See, sometimes you just can't escape.
No, I remember one time I was like dating this comedian. This is before I started doing comedy in Philadelphia. I'd never gone to a comedy show. He took me to this show at a restaurant, and I didn't know what the dress code was. And I always overdress, but because I want to dress for the occasion. So I'm wearing like this, not backless, but like low scoop back, black dress and heels. I think I had stockings on, and so everyone made fun of me all night. Because I'm at like the equivalent of a bar show, wearing like an evening gown. So.
Well, at least you weren't underdressed.
Yeah, right. At least it wasn't a bad thing.
That's exactly right. But overall, the Zoom served a purpose. Obviously, it was helped to the connectivity with the pandemic. We're here. Let's talk about it. You mentioned that you were scheduled to do a couple nights in a row. The day of the pandemic lockdown, is that right?
Yeah, I was gonna do the Burning Bridges Comedy Festival. I think I was in 2 of the shows that they were doing that weekend.
Wow.
And it was like a few of our like first festivals. So like I think Jeff Fieldhouse, he might have done other festivals, but I know he was like scheduled to do it too.
Right.
I'm like, oh man, first one. And I also was in that. I think I had gotten accepted to the Millville Music Festival. Okay. But that was going to be in August, so I was like, obviously that's not happening.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What was your thoughts? Just what ran through your mind, even before that was canceled? Like that, what we were hearing on there, seeing on the news, was actually real, and now we're dealing with it. It's no longer in Europe; it's here. Did you initially think that couple of weeks we're gonna flatten the curve and things will get back to normal, or did you think we were gonna be in for a longer haul?
I think I thought that we'd get it through in a couple of weeks. It was like, we'll just all go home and then we will all come out and it'll be fine. But then part of it, I think, as I thought about it a lot more, I just realized it's amazing that it didn't move even faster, because we are not clean, like, as a society. I was like, how has this not happened already?
Oh, I am there with you.
Like, I was like, oh my goodness. Like, I've done things that I wouldn't do today, and I have standards.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I was at I'll say it. I was at Applebee's. Mm-hmm. I used to go there a lot. I was there the other night in the men's room, and I usually don't pay attention to much in the men's room, but there was no one in the place, and I'm like looking around, doing my thing, and I see this sign. It said, "Hand washing 101."
Yes.
And there was these 3 bold steps on how to wash your hands.
You would be surprised. A lot of people don't a lot of people don't flush the toilet in public spaces. And I'm just like, what? Okay. Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah. That's a thing. Yeah, I try not to ever have to use a toilet as a male ever when I'm out. I can understand that.
I have special skills. I can make it home.
No matter how far.
Women, y'all aren't so lucky. But but just nothing's worse than in my sphere of living, nothing's worse than being in the bathroom and just doing your business and then watching people come in and just leave. Yeah. And not. I'm almost like, turn the water on, humor me.
Just play, just pretend.
Yeah, I don't have to see you. Just let me hear the water going. Give me 3 seconds. Give me something. Right?
Like they know they have an audience and they still don't do it.
And then you go out and sit back at your table, and then you see that guy 2 tables over, and you're staring at him like, you got to be kidding, as he starts to eat his wings and his
Yeah.
I mean, like, come on.
It's crazy. There's a lot. There's so much that you did. I never thought about because, I mean, a lot of places are not as clean as they should be anyway. And we all knew that. Like, I love Waffle House, but I never expected Waffle House to pass an inspection. And some of them do not.
I did. Oh my God. Oh my God, Brittany. I had the horror story of all horror stories, and I won't give it to you. It's too long. But I was just in a Waffle House early 2000s in Georgia, in the backwoods of Georgia.
Okay.
It was a trailer.
Oh.
And it was on a dirt mound, and there was the trailer, and the wheels of the trailer were there. There was a single, not double wide, but a single mobile home, and you stepped onto the trailer and then into it. But inside it had the motif and everything. Yeah. There was flies everywhere. It was out of, and that's why to this day I will not step foot in a Waffle House. I'm sure the food's great, but.
It is. I still go, I won't lie. But I just know what to expect. I know what to expect.
You need to mentally get over that. But that was such a damaging thing. When you see, sometimes when you see things that are just so, I just can't do it. But I don't know how we've survived this long with this bacteria. Period, for how bad the hygiene appears to be with this society.
Yeah, especially because we have the ability. I don't even know, because back in the day they would just shower once a year, and that was like the thing. And I don't know how we made it past that, but then we did. And now it's like still the same. Like
I know.
I don't know if you have TikTok or anything.
I'm aware of it.
I'm on TikTok, and the things that people will go on that app and admit about themselves is insane.
It's like true confessions kind of thing.
And I'm like, what are you getting out of this? Like, is someone paying? There are people who will go and they're like, yeah, I don't wash my body. And I'm like, what do you mean? They don't. They just wash their hair and let the water. I'm like, you couldn't pay me to snitch on myself like this.
Well, where were the parents, man?
It's the parents saying it sometimes. like it's insane.
There was a doctor just recently told me that his understanding from the things he's read is that flu's at an all-time low now. So maybe getting a little better on the cleanliness thing has kind of knocked the flu numbers down. But I think social distance is probably, and the masks are helping that too. But I just can't believe we're just filthy.
We are filthy.
It's really terrible, though. It's terrible.
Oh, it's bad. It's really bad. And like everywhere is like that. There's no place that's safe. Like no building that you're like, that building probably is perfectly clean. No. It's not. It's filthy.
Okay, so you're a criminal defense attorney in the daytime. You're saving the world. You're going into the jail.
Yeah.
So you've seen some rather rough places.
Yeah. What I've seen, I mean, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. I didn't start going to the jail until I became a defense attorney, so it's been only a year.
Okay.
So I don't know what it was like previously, because I see everyone behind glass, and I don't think that's what it was, how it was before.
With the old jail.
With the old.
See, I'm old. Yeah, I heard the spiral that went down.
Yeah, I haven't been in there.
Yeah, I got a tour of that as a Boy Scout when I was. Why they took a bunch of Boy Scouts into that jail on a tour, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's not good.
But they did, probably to scare us.
Yeah.
But it scared me.
Which one was it? Was it the one in the family courthouse, or?
Yeah. Well. It was the old building with the bridge across the street. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And
I know what you're talking about.
And it went down. That was that wasn't the county pen, right?
No, I think it might have been. I don't remember, because I actually worked in that building, but I never actually toured the old jail.
Okay.
I was like working in the quarters where I guess the old warden back in the day, his wife cheated on him, and there's like a movie with Tom Hanks or something. It might not be Tom Hanks. I don't remember enough about this.
Okay.
But that's where I was in that building. So I know it's cramped.
There was a state pen that was across the McKees Rocks Bridge. There was a state penitentiary, which I think has been closed for a while now. There's a water next to the water treatment plant. But that was a thing when I was a kid. But the jail that everybody. I don't know if that's the county jail. Yeah,
I think it. Yeah, no, it is. I don't know what I'm thinking about.
It was a spiral, and it just went like how many? It was something.
I never went down there. I always wanted to, but I for some reason just never went to see at least what it was like. But yeah, the county jails now, it's only a few blocks away down the street.
Yeah, and that's all. Yeah, and that's but that's all. But there's no basement there. That's all above ground.
I think it is. I know. Yeah, I think it is all above ground. I think there's something in the basement, but I don't think
and the
that
windows are
anyone's
all
housed
little.
down there.
Yeah, you can see it from the.
And they're so high up, so like you don't actually. From my understanding of how the jail is constructed, you don't actually have like a view outside.
That's
like,
just for light.
Yeah, like
yeah,
that's
just
it.
like, oof.
That's rough. And there's like, I don't think there's a courtyard out there either, so they're not going into fresh air at any point.
Yeah. See, kids, stay in school. Don't do drugs. Do your homework.
It's just rough.
You know, well, I mean, like cleanliness and all that. I mean, for you to sit and, I mean, but you don't go into the jail. You're meeting with your clients behind glass. Is that how it
Yeah, like I'm in the jail, but I'm not sure where the old meeting rooms used to be, but I know I've met clients, I guess, in their pods, and then they have like windows.
Got it.
That connect to the outside. So it's like a square, but everything's on the inside, and then you can face out for the window pods.
Okay.
So that's how I've been doing it.
Just a little bit more on the legal front. What was this pandemic like in terms of the work that you do? Like, I know a lot of the trials and so forth and hearings were done virtually.
Yeah.
Do you think any of that will be retained going forward from a cost standpoint, or do you think judges and court officials would prefer to be there?
I think people would prefer to be in person, just because I know for jury trials, there were no jury trials that were done virtually. It's not possible. I can't imagine any scenario in which it would be possible to do a jury trial virtually. I don't know if non-jury trials were being done virtually. I think some might have been, but I'm actually not sure about that. I think maybe moving forward, they might allow pleas to happen virtually, or like conferences to happen virtually, because you don't necessarily need people to be in for a plea or a conference. But as far as hearings go, I think most of the judges would prefer to have people in person, just because, I mean, a big part of it is assessing credibility based on how someone appears and what their demeanor is like.
Got it.
And it's hard to do that virtually.
I would think so.
Very much so.
I would think so. I was thinking maybe would family court be a good candidate to do more things virtually, but you know what? The judge probably wants to evaluate demeanor and intent and all that stuff too,
especially with what kind of cases you might like. There were a lot of mishaps for other county or other areas with the caseloads. I don't know if you saw like the videos that would make the rounds on the internet, but I know some of them were pretty terrible. There was like a family court hearing, I believe, and I think it was a domestic violence case, and you had the victim and the defendant in the same room, but they were trying to pretend like they weren't in the same room.
I saw that.
It was crazy.
I saw
that. And I think
that.
that's what they're concerned about, because I do think
I bet
things like that happen a lot anyway.
So he was off camera threatening her as to what to say or something like that.
It was something like that. And she was like, is someone in the room with you? And the woman was like, yeah. Or I can't remember exactly what she said, but it was just a really odd situation.
I think I saw
also
it.
think a lot of lawyers, not lawyers, but the legal profession, we're not as technologically advanced as I think that we would have hoped to be necessarily. So I think people prefer to do things in person. And I get that, especially with certain constitutional considerations, but also just like how legal practice is in general.
It's a process that does not, from an outsider looking in, it seems to be a process that does not take the technology very well.
No, it doesn't. I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't. It doesn't.
And they're still down there with Xerox machines and copy machines, and just go down to the deeds office and see how that's still done manually a lot of the way, and you'll see that it's not. They're still trying to get into the 90s.
There's a lot of faxing. There's so much faxing.
The fax machine. That's where all fax machines go to die. Then they're revived with life support, and they take them down to the county records office.
And they still work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Comedy. Like, did you want to make people laugh since you were little? Is this something that you learned later in life?
I don't even know. I think I've always had something in me that liked making comedic things in general. Just like, I was thinking about it after I had been doing comedy for a while. I thought about it and I was like, I guess that made sense that I did comedy, just because like even when I was in law school, like I would run for like class president, and I made commercials and no one else was making commercials for a 2-day election. And so we just make like funny commercials, and I won on those commercials and the memes I made, because I made a lot of Batman. A lot of Batman. We had someone stealing like school lunches from the refrigerator, and I was like, that's going to be my thing. And so I started making all these memes talking about like Batman's watching you, and like doing interviews with people and assessing the situation. They stopped stealing lunches. I don't know who it was. We didn't catch the person, but.
So you took to this new media pretty good then.
Somewhat. I mean, no, not well. I took to it better than I thought I would, because like I did get a little bit of a following on some of the new medium, but like stand-up comedy just like never was something that crossed my mind. The reason I started doing it was to get better at public speaking, because I knew I was good at writing.
Really?
I was really shy, and I was nervous to try to go off book and not use notes when I do classes, or if I had like a case or something for school, because it's a grade. And so I was like, this is low stakes, high reward, so I'll do this. Like I didn't care if anyone laughed. So
you started basically to increase your skill set for your career.
Yeah, that's really why. I mean, that's why I say, in my head, I think that's why I rationalized it, because I don't think I would do it now. I think I'd be too nervous to go and try it. So I think I had to rationalize it to myself. And I was like, Brittany, you have to do this so that you can be a better speaker. But in reality, I probably just wanted to do it. Okay,
so were you telling your friends or your family that you were going to do this? And what was the reaction like?
So the reason I even started is I saw Hambones used to have this like crazy menu that looked super gourmet. And I was like, this food looks amazing. So I'm going to go and eat this food. And I went on a Monday night, which is when they had their open mic night with, it was, I think Joey Marchi was hosting it. And I saw the stand-up and was like, oh, I could maybe try that. And so what I did is after I left, I talked to Joey, and he was like, yeah, you can come next week. And so I posted on Facebook that I was going to do stand-up comedy for the first time. I have no idea why I did that. Like, I have no idea.
That's pretty gutsy.
It was. And I don't know if I'm always that person, but for some reason I was that day. And so I went, and then I did it, and then I recorded it, and then I put it on Facebook.
That's really gutsy.
I have no idea why, but they responded really well.
Okay.
And so after that, I started going every week, and I didn't understand stand-up, so I was making a new set every week, which is insane.
Yeah.
It's not good.
How hard is that, though? That's hard.
It is hard because you're not improving on any of your sets. But then I started doing flat earth jokes, and those started doing pretty well. And then I realized, oh, everyone else is practicing their jokes. Like, they're not, this isn't like natural. Okay.
So you were a complete novice at that point.
I was.
Okay, so you're at Hambones, and you're eating the food, or you're ordering the food, and you see there's an open mic, and then you were just compelled to go do it.
Don't even know why, because that doesn't make sense.
Well, no, I think it makes all the sense in the world, but the funny part for me is, like, that's pretty crazy. Like, did you just have a couple of jokes in your back pocket that you thought were funny? I'm just going to say them and see what people say. Or did you already kind of have a thing going on in your mind, like what you wanted to do?
Literally, I had nothing. This is what I'm saying. I don't know why. I was like, this is what I'm going to do today. I'll be here next week. I told him. It's like I'm a woman of my word.
Oh, my God.
That's serious. I had nothing, but I thought about it, and I was like, okay, I've heard comedy before. I could figure something out. And so I told a story. And that worked. The story worked, but I also put a lot of buffer jokes in to be like, I've never done comedy before, so please laugh. Is anything.
Just pleading for laughter.
Just please laugh. It's okay. It did.
Did you tell them what you did for a living?
No. Well, I wasn't a lawyer yet. I just graduated law school. I was supposed to be studying for the bar exam, but then my parents were like, why don't you just take a break? And I was like, that's a great idea. And so that's why I had all this like free time.
Yeah, I want to be a stand-up comedian.
Just graduated law school.
I bet they love that. Yeah. They probably didn't know where that was going.
They had no idea. They were not upset about it. They were like, okay. That's
pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
So yeah.
So do you remember what the joke was? That first open mic?
Yeah, because so I was like really like dumb as a kid, and so It was about the time that my brother accidentally called the cops, and then we hung up on the police, which is a bad idea. Don't do that, because they will come to your house with quickness and maybe pull guns. So don't do that. We were not smart. We couldn't stay at home by ourselves anymore.
Okay.
So that was the story.
And it went over.
It went over. I haven't really done it that much
How big was
since.
the crowd?
I have no idea. It could have been like 10 people, maybe, and some of them might have been my friends. Not that many. No, some of them might have been my friends. But
that's a good strategic move.
It is to have like plants in the crowd. Fantastic.
So that still goes on, eh?
Not at Hambones anymore. So
anywhere though. I mean,
like the open mic.
Plants.
Oh, plants. Not well. I don't really invite people to my shows anymore. It's not that I don't want them there. I do. I just always feel awkward because I'm like, do they think that I'm not trying to force you to come.
I see what you're saying.
Like,
yeah, it's a little
hard.
awkward. It can be awkward. Okay.
And so I'll post sometimes. I'm also really bad at promotion. I've been trying to get better, but
yeah. Well, we're living in a look at me, and you're in a career that there's sort of the element of self promotion that goes on with your career, right?
Yeah, and it was different for me because I didn't have to do that before. Like, you don't have to get cases as a prosecutor. Like, you're just assigned them. Totally
different ball game now.
Yeah. And then with the pandemic, because that's the other thing, I started this new job in April of last year.
Oh my.
So that was completely different because I had ideas that I wanted to do for promotion. Like, I wanted to do like an expungement clinic, and I had a couple attorneys I talked to who were willing to help me with it and thought it would be a great idea. It was going to be a huge event. And then everything was gone. And I was like, well, okay, all those resources are gone.
Bacteria came. What, if you don't mind me asking, like, so how many years as a prosecutor?
I was there for 2 years, almost exactly 2 years.
Was that kind of the plan to go into private practice, or did you after 2 years you had enough? And what made you decide to take the career switch?
So I actually hadn't planned on ever going to private practice. I actually liked working just for the government in general, because the reason why I even want it, there are not a lot of black prosecutors, and I feel like we need to have black people or people of color or just different people in different areas of the government, because they're not a lot. They're only, like, I think 5% of attorneys are black. So like,
really?
We're talking about very low numbers.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a very low number, and I never thought that I would actually leave that early on.
Okay.
But you don't make any money.
Yeah,
you really
that's
don't.
what I heard.
I had a second job. I was working at Starbucks, and I was like, this cannot continue.
Wait. You were a prosecutor, but you had a second job.
Yeah, as a barista before I go into work.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
A lot of us had second jobs. A lot of people probably still do. So
yeah,
you're not making anything.
Why do you think the system's set up that way? Because there are the reason I ask that question is I understand civil servants never traditionally have made a lot of money in certain positions, but then you go, especially in Washington, D.C. or around the state capitals, you see a lot of positions that make good money. Like, there's a disparity there, right?
There is, because I do think that our county was one of the lower paid ones in general, even in Pennsylvania.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, you're looking at, like, if you look at Philadelphia, starting salary I think is like $60,000.
Wow.
And that was like $20,000 more.
Holy, are you kidding me?
No, I wish I was, because I was like, oh my goodness.
That's the second job.
Yeah, that's but a lot of people have said, I mean, I think the thing is, because I went into it knowing I'm not here to make money, I'm here to like help or learn and do whatever I can. Right. And I was fine with that.
You have to have an altruistic bent if you're going to take that job, period.
Especially
right?
like if you want to do it long term, which is what I kind of planned on doing, at least for a little bit. But yeah, I think there are a lot of reasons. There are a lot of reasons. I think part of it is when people are making the budgets, and this is just my opinion, I do think a lot of people don't necessarily see themselves ever needing.
Oh, I see.
Like an
what
attorney,
you're
so
saying.
they don't. I don't think the jobs are always that valued, because I think you take for granted that people are always going to want to occupy positions in the prosecutor's office or in the public defender's office, because they are paid about the same. And I think that
is it listed. Is it looked at possibly as a launching pad for people to start their own private practice?
It's that too, because a lot of people do start off in one of the offices, and I think a lot of people do view it as like, well, you're not going to be here for very long, which is not I don't think that's a very good viewpoint. I'm not going to say that you should necessarily, I've thought about it a lot, like I don't know if there necessarily should be people who are career prosecutors or necessarily career defense attorneys, just because I do think that there are a lot of, I think your mind frame changes a lot. Well, I don't know. I think people get jaded anyway, but I just think you get into your position. Sometimes you don't realize what it's like on the other side. And I think that's important, especially when you're talking about seeking justice. Like it's important to actually understand either how much power you wield or what is actually going on and what are the metrics, because there's just so many moving parts.
Yeah, I get it. I understand what you're saying. It's probably harder to stay current and relevant the longer you're there.
Part of that, but I also just think that you forget that I think it would inform your decision making a little bit more if you had different perspectives. So if you have someone who's always thought one way their whole life and they're in a position where they're consistently thinking that way, they're not going to necessarily, you're going to look at the other side as opposing counsel. I have a problem with the adversarial system generally when you're talking about conflict resolution, especially in criminal law.
Of course.
I don't think it is the best system.
I understand.
So I think that's what my actual problem is, because I don't think that every solution, like when you're a hammer, every problem is a nail. And I think that's a lot of the approach that just in general, and I'm not talking about any specific person or any specific group.
Understood.
But it's just, I do think that you always look at opposing sides as opposing sides.
Yeah.
And that's not always the best approach, especially as you learn more about how people operate and how people think and what different circumstances, how they affect people and how people's reactions to these things are different. Because like, I mean, when you're talking about even like drug addiction or selling drugs, there are a lot of other factors that might play into that, where you could possibly, like, you could send someone or, you know, have someone go to jail for a really long time. That's not going to change their behavior if that's the problem. That's not going to help them get off of drugs. It's probably just going to make it a little bit worse. And I think that we need to look at other solutions. And I think we're kind of not always encouraged to look at other solutions for fixing the problem. We're just going to keep having the same problem. You can hold the person accountable as much as you want, but you're going to keep having the same problem until you fix the root.
Because there's no flexibility in punishment. It almost sounds like there's the minimum mandatory, I think. But that was a problem years ago with the 3 strike you're out.
Oh, yeah. Well, that kind of stuff, that's a problem. But I think the bigger thing too, and I think it's changing some, I do think people are getting more creative with how they look at fixing problems. Let's go with that conflict resolution, I would even say, for some of it, because I just think that a lot of it, I almost lost my train of thought. It's not that 3 strikes you're out, but it's essentially just how we go about, the tough on crime. That's what it is. That whole mentality like swept the nation.
There's no question.
And when you're tough on crime really just means like tough on people. And that's not the best approach.
Right.
And I'm not saying that in the sense of there's certain crime, like when you're talking about certain things, like, that's rough, and you're going to have hurt people and very serious problems that you can't fix. But it's that whole, when you're a hammer, every problem's a nail thing again, because when you're tough on crime, you're just like, we're going to send everyone to prison and we're going to do this and that. And that's not always the answer. Yeah,
there's not enough delineation between events. I mean, we're painting with such a big, broad brush there when it comes to punishment. And I get that. I totally get that. Yeah. We're not, like, if you take marijuana, we're not legal in Pennsylvania as of...
Not exactly.
Okay.
I think it's moving towards that direction.
I think
it's
it
not
is
there
too.
Yet.
It needs to. And I'm not a user, but it needs to.
Yeah.
My question is, like, something like that, it does say it is in Colorado. So do you know off the top of your head, like, if somebody had I guess 3 strikes and you're out back like in the 80s and 90s, you could have a life sentence for dealing marijuana.
For like different
Would those people be released if the law changed?
I don't know.
I wonder about that.
Because the
I
thing
always wondered
is,
about that.
when you're talking about like law changes, it depends on like the retroactive nature. So like, does this law apply to every single, like, are we saying that this is like, I agree. Just because, like, if you're going to say it's fine to do certain things now, like, if anyone's in jail for that, that's, like, really unfair.
No question.
Person.
No question.
I don't know exactly what it's going to be. I don't know if they're doing anything on the federal. Well, I don't know what's happening on the federal level.
Yeah.
So it's going to be up to the states. But as far as how the states are operating, I haven't looked into it yet because I've been wondering that too. But I just haven't had a chance to research it.
Okay.
But I think it's going to depend on whether or not they determine or they decide to make it a retroactive law. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to be something where it's like once the law is signed, they're just going to start letting people out of jail. They might start a review, but you might just have to appeal your case based on the new law. So it could go one of like a million different ways.
It seems to me so unfair. I mean, to be... Yeah, we decided as a society that marijuana should be legal. And we're going to do that. Boom. And all these people that have just that charge...
Yeah.
How is that?
It's really
That's
bad.
not justice.
It's bad, especially because I mean the way that it's moving is it's not just like we're legalizing marijuana, but like people are building very expensive, wealthy.
Oh, we monetized
businesses.
it. Yeah, it's become a commodity now.
It's much, and it's like an experience for some of these businesses. And I'm like, okay, they were trying to do that back in the day.
Exactly right. They had it hidden in their little glow lights in their in their basement, you know, and they had all the insulation packed so you couldn't see from the outside. They were trying to do exactly what they're doing legally today.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. It's totally insane. Okay, back to comedy. Yeah. So your parents were cool with it?
Yeah.
And your friends, the friends that you mentioned to it, were they a little bit shit shocked that you were doing that? Or
So some of them, I think, were with me on that first night. And they were like, okay, Brittany, like, whatever. This is cool.
Would they expect, based on your personality, would they have expected that from you?
I don't even know. I think some of them may have expected that from me. So it was funny because, like, they started telling my professors at the law school. And I remember one of my professors, he looked at me, he's like, "You're funny?" And I was like, "Yeah." I guess. I don't know. Because I'm so much different when I'm like in class or like in a work setting. I'm very serious most of the time, unless I'm like very close with you and we have like that kind of relationship.
Got it.
I think some of my friends maybe were like, "This is not what I expected, but it's not that odd. Like this makes a lot of sense."
Okay.
Okay. Especially because some of the jokes I came up with were like conversations we had. And I'm like, oh, this could work.
They're like, damn it, she's using our conversation. That's getting over.
I wrote all the jokes I used, though. I did write all the ones I used, and it was all because I also bring up. I just text the dumbest thing. I'm like, did you see this?
Got it.
And so.
Got it.
But yeah.
Okay. So it's just fascinating to me that you did it on a whim almost. It sounds like you just did it on a whim.
I did.
So you come home that night, and you're thinking to yourself, that wasn't too bad. I kind of liked it, or it went over pretty well. And from there, what?
I just started going back every week, and sometimes my friends would come, but eventually...
Same place?
Same place. I would only go to Hambones. I never went anywhere else for the first few months. I was nervous, and Hambones was a really receptive crowd anyway. There were people who were coming for the open mic.
Right.
So that was like great, because a lot of times comedy is a surprise, and surprise comedy is the worst. No one likes it. People get angry.
Okay.
But I would only go to Hambones, and then I think it was I started meeting the comedians because I would hang out. Like I wouldn't just go and do my set. Like I would just go. I'd watch everyone's set and like hang out. So I met. I think it was Izzy who I met.
Yeah.
And Izzy put me on my first show. It was him and Eric Nesby. And so I was on the show with them. And then after that, I think I was on the show. That show I was on with Gab and Nesso.
Okay.
And so.
Oh, yeah. Gab's done this show.
She's great. And they're all great. And so Gab started giving me opportunities at Brillo Box.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started doing just like random little shows here. And then I loved doing the Brillo Box show too. And then it was fun. I think I did it for about 6 months. And then I had to start studying for the bar exam because I was taking it in February.
Got it.
And I did Gab's show March while I was waiting for the bar results. And then once I got my bar results, I started working in 2 weeks. And I had no time to do comedy until the end of, it was 2018, I think, December. So.
Okay. So, you got to tell me about your worst gig.
Oh my goodness. Okay. This was so bad. And so it was the drinking partners. They're fantastic.
Oh yeah.
And
These guys are great.
I was like, oh my
Day and
goodness.
Ed, right?
Yeah, Day and Ed. I was like, I don't know if they're gonna book me again after this. It was a show it was the satellite campus for Penn State.
Okay.
And I never did like a college show before.
Okay. Why their audiences are more difficult?
I don't know. I was the only one I've done so far.
Okay.
But we get there and it was in the dorm area, like in the lobby area. And I don't know, the vibe was just like a little bit off. Like I think that a lot of them had not been to comedy shows before and didn't really watch stand-up comedy.
Possible.
And it was something like that one of the RAs put together, he did a great job. But at the same time, like they did not like me at all. It was like aggressive.
Wait, what?
It's aggressive.
Oh, come on. You got to dish it out.
Well, I don't know because I think I started off. This is where I messed up.
Were they booing? Or
no, they didn't. They just didn't say anything. You want to know the joke that got the most laughs?
Okay.
It's when I said, I practiced these jokes in the car ride on the way over here, and no one laughed then either. And then they laughed, and that was hilarious.
College kids.
I think I messed up because I started talking about cruises because I had a joke about cruises. I don't know.
They've never been on a cruise.
Maybe that's what it was. I was like, maybe college kids don't like cruises. I don't know if I liked cruises when I was in college. I wasn't cool. I have no idea.
I don't think most parents would send their college kid on a cruise.
Maybe not. I'm not like that much older. Well, I wasn't at the time. I was like 26 maybe, but like did not go well. I did 12 minutes and then
Was it a tough 12 minutes?
it was, well, I was like, they paid me for 15 minutes. I will do my time. And they were like, you can come sit down now. I was like, okay, thank you. Have a great night. And then I left.
Oh, so is that the extent of like, it doesn't even sound like you bombed though, because some of the comedians, and they told me about bombing.
Yeah.
These stories they gave me, they bombed.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like you really bombed.
They didn't laugh.
Get over.
Yeah, I got that one joke, and that was the only one I landed in the whole 12 minutes, and that joke took 15 seconds to tell. So
what goes through your mind when like you have a 12-minute, 15-minute set, and can you tell right away, like in the first 2 or 3 minutes, that things aren't real good?
I think you can recover too.
Okay.
Because like the way you're told by a lot of people to structure your jokes is like to start off with like your second best joke and then end with like your best joke. And I'm not going to say that the joke I start off with is my best joke. It's well received, and so that works. And so I was going by like the laughs per minute idea for a little bit. Like that's how I would try to judge, like, oh, did this set go well? Like how was it doing as far as time? And so I have like an intro joke that like for the most part works every time. And so if I can get them to like me on that first joke, then after that, like if they like you early on, like it's a lot easier to win them over, and you can get a little bit not controversial, but you can tell that joke that you're not that sure about in like 2 to 3 minutes, and you're like, okay, and then you have plenty of time to recover.
Okay.
So I think you can tell if it's going not well early on, but I think it depends on how you structure your jokes as well, because I'm like, if you didn't like those jokes, you probably don't like these ones. So that's what happens. Oh, there's more of that. So.
Do you sit down and write? Where does the inspiration come from?
Oh my goodness. I talk to myself.
Okay.
I do. Like that's how I come up with all of my jokes. A lot of my inspiration comes from my dating life. That's where most of my jokes came from. Oh my goodness.
There we go.
Right? It was like for a while I was like, this sucks, and then I was like, but I can sometimes get paid because of it, so this is fantastic. So that's where a lot of jokes come from. Those are my best jokes because I think a lot more people than I thought experienced some of the weird things that I experienced. And I also had, I don't know what was going on, but I had the weirdest dating life. Just every day I was like, how is this possible?
Now, is this combination online, non-online dating life?
Like online, in person. I was just like, I don't know. People like, where do you meet these people? I'm like, I have no idea. I cannot tell you. Like
Match.com and eHarmony and all that stuff?
I didn't. Well, see, I was too cheap to pay for it. I was like, I'll figure this out.
Well, women usually don't have to, right? Because the men are all out there pursuing.
And maybe I should have. Maybe it's a situation
That
of
might
like
have
you
been
get
a
what
bet.
you pay
Yeah,
for.
I mean, maybe Harmony, being based upon they're supposed to be vetting people. I mean, you might have liked that a little more.
Maybe, but I was too cheap. I was like, I'll figure it out. I will figure this out.
I ain't paying $39 a month for that.
No, to meet the same man I've already met on Tinder. No, thank
Guy's
you.
gonna show with purple suspenders.
Yeah. I wish that would have been fine. I would be okay with that. Like,
Really?
It got to the point where I'm like, I don't even care. I remember I went on a date with like this conspiracy theorist guy one time, which like it wasn't good. It was so
what
bad.
kind of conspiracy?
Not any of the good kinds, just all of the bad ones. It was horror. Like the first 10 minutes, I was like, this is so. I'll tell the story. Like, we met at a milkshake place. Okay. He was a vegan, but he said it was fine.
At a milkshake place.
They had vegan options, so he said it was fine, and I stupidly believed him.
Okay.
I'll tell you, that was a bad
How's
idea.
that work? Yeah. Okay.
So we get there, and then he at some point says something like, I don't know how black people can ask for human rights when we treat animals the way we do. He was also black. And it was
I'm sorry.
like, that's not a good date.
That's not a good conversation starter ever.
It's like, I don't know you, sir.
Wait. Black guy tells you that he doesn't know why black people ask for human rights when we treat animals badly.
Yes. And
He said that to you.
I'm like, what do I have to do? Like, you said you wanted to come here. If you had a moral objection, you should have said something. I still got the milkshake. I was angry. So, like, it's that kind of stuff where I'm like, how is this happening?
Oh my God. How do you dismiss something like that?
You buy a milkshake. That's what I did.
Piss him off.
I was just like, this
He'll
is
run.
delicious. It got so much, because I was thinking like,
Oh,
maybe I
man.
can talk to him. It did not work. It got to the point where like,
He wasn't
I actually
open-minded, right?
had to, in the wrong ways. He was like very open-minded about stuff that doesn't make sense. So yeah, like he was too open-minded. Like everything is a
You
conspiracy.
were hoping for like aliens or something. Something
Yes,
fun,
something
right?
fun. Flat Earth, like, yeah,
Yeah.
let's talk about it. I'm in. No, we had to talk about all the bad things, and then I was like, okay, this isn't going well. Like at a certain point, when you have to take too strong of a stance on something you thought we all agreed
Yeah,
upon,
yeah.
it's not going well.
Did he give you any visual indications that he would be quirky and weird? Look normal?
He looked normal. So the problem,
Was there a tell?
There was a tell, and I didn't know about it because I think he was a Black Hebrew, and like that is like I didn't know anything.
Like Sammy Davis Jr.?
I don't think it was that one. I don't remember. I don't know a lot about it. Still, I was just like, I'm just mind my business after this
Like
date.
a Jewish black guy.
He would no, because I'm pretty sure it might not have been that organization, but
Okay.
whichever one it was, I didn't know it, but I think it was anti-Semitic, and I was like,
wait, what?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think whichever one he was, I was like, that's
Oh
weird.
my-
Like, is he
that's
Jewish?
so weird.
Whatever it was made me think that he was Jewish, and then I met him. I was like, you don't. This is bad. This is a really bad thing.
And how did you get connected with this gentleman?
It was on Tinder.
Oh, Tinder! Is that the one where you swipe? Is that swipe left, swipe right?
It's that situation. So again, you get what you pay for, I guess, because I paid nothing. Yeah, that was the tell. And I missed it
Okay.
because I didn't know.
Okay, well, you got some material out of that. Could you use that? I mean, did you make jokes from that one?
I tried. I've
Didn't
been
go
doing
over?
it. Sometimes it works. I just needed to work it out more. I think I figured it out. So we'll
Okay.
see soon
Okay.
if it works. But,
What's this deal with the flat earthers now?
Oh my! So the one.
You're not a flat earther.
No,
right? Okay,
I'm not.
just putting that out there because I don't want to step over your toes.
It's
but-
okay. I will not be offended. Literally, one of the jokes I would tell, because this happened, I think, was like the Flat Earth Society tweeted that they had like members all around the world.
Around the
World. That's what they said. Maybe it was a joke. I don't think it was. I think us saying it's a
pretty
joke.
good.
It's a very good joke.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So whoever ran that, maybe they have a sense of humor, but I don't even know anymore. They've been proving the Earth is flat based on like they're like flooding couldn't happen if the Earth was like it would just drip off. Into where? I don't know. So, what
Science.
direction? I don't know.
I don't know. What is the premise of flat Earth? Like that you can't, like, they don't see a curvature on the earth or something? Or
That's one of them. Like, you can't,
know.
but you can.
Yeah.
But they say you can't. Because, like, the one I was telling, like, the jokes I was telling were, like, about B.O.B. the rapper. I don't know if you had heard about what he was doing. Like, he was basically trying to raise $1 million.
He was a flat earther, right?
He was a flat earther, and he was trying to raise $1 million to send weather balloons to space to see if the Earth. I'm telling you right now, that man just needed money, and he needed to justify it because weather balloons do not cost that much. And he wasn't doing well. So,
there's a little marketing going on there.
I think that's what was happening. Maybe he's still a flat earther, but it's odd to be this committed to it.
Yeah.
But they're very committed to this idea.
Well, this past year, we not to go too deep, but there's been a lot of people committed to a lot of weird conspiracies. Yeah. So that's kind of the world we're probably living in right now.
It is.
And there's got to be material in there somewhere, right?
I haven't touched it yet because I'm just like, I cannot vibe with y'all.
So let's talk about that in terms of comedy, just to get your vibe on that. So it's interesting to talk to a group of comedians because each one's got their own comfort level with certain things. Like T-Robe, Tony will talk about anything. And Terry Jones, maybe not quite as much, but he'll, but there are other comedians that are way more guarded, and they all had very valid reasons. I mean, it wasn't there's no right or wrong answer. Everybody has their own thing. So do you do any political humor in your set, or have you? And if so, how's it gone over?
I don't normally. Maybe if I started traveling a little bit more, I might.
Okay.
But probably not political. I've never been the type to personally do political humor because I don't think I can do it well. I don't like the proficiency I have at the level I'm in it.
Okay.
Now, if that makes sense. Like,
that's fair enough, yeah.
Maybe like further down the line, I would be interested in that. I think I've tried to talk about social justice issues a little bit. But if you do it too much, people don't like it in Western Pennsylvania. And so I don't do it a lot, and I didn't practice it a lot. And I also think my stronger jokes are more personal experience jokes. Some of the ones I do tell, like I did tell a joke about, like, my name is Brittany Alexis, and so people very often thought I was white when they would talk to me on the phone. So that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Not too much else, but just like personal experience for the
most
part.
Right on.
So I think
because
like I also think I don't like getting I overthink. I do overthink things, and so I know that if I told a joke and I wasn't 100% sure that I felt very confident about that particular joke or the take I had on it, I know it would bother me.
Yeah.
So like even if no one said anything,
I understand that. So what is your thoughts on the slippery slope that all comedians face now about limits in comedy? Like, so big age difference between us. So my generation, Pryor and my parents were Lenny Bruce, goes all the way back. You Red Fox, and then you had Eddie Murphy, and everyone in between. And what was acceptable or not acceptable? I don't think it was ever acceptable in society, but in the realm of comedy, it was acceptable is a tough word to use, but it was put out there without any repercussions.
Yeah.
Way of putting it.
Yeah.
That stuff doesn't fly anymore, and in certain comedy fans want to prosecute. They're not prosecute's a terrible word to use. They want to try to cancel, or they want to punish these people for making that comedy 20, 30, 40 years ago. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to cancel them out. Is that helpful? Or do you think, do we need to channel that energy toward learning why that's not acceptable anymore? What's your thoughts on that? Because it's kind of a mess right now. It
is. It's like hard for me to understand to some extent because I think, so the people I've seen getting canceled more so, it's not necessarily, and I'm not talking about like older comics, like more people, like newer people. It's not necessarily the comedy that it was like the stuff they were doing behind the scenes.
Every time.
Like and that's what catches people up. Like it's every time. And I think what happens is, like with that situation with Chris D'Elia, I don't know exactly what happened in the aftermath, but it wasn't the jokes he told. It was like him maybe Snapchatting people who were under the age of 18.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, it was not just that, but people were like, I didn't like him anyway because his comedy was this or that. And so I just think it depends, because if it's one thing to, I think, cancel someone. I don't even think it's canceling to hold somebody accountable if they're actually like committing a crime or like doing something like bad.
Agreed.
Agreed. Like if you're like, we need to talk about that.
R. Kelly.
Like I don't think they canceled R. Kelly. We all knew what R. Kelly was doing.
He canceled himself.
Hard, like multiple times.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of it, and then it'll be. I don't know, because I think I'm very conflicted on it, because some of it I'm like, I think part of it is that we're all online and we put everything everywhere. So like a lot of that comedy from back in the day wasn't on, like your kid's phone. Like they're not going to see it.
Good point. That's a very good point.
And I think that's the problem, because I think everything is just so intermixed. So like you're obviously going to have people who are going to disagree with your joke regardless if you said anything wrong or not.
I never put that. You know what? We're living in an era that even in 2003 or 4, when my kids were very young, I could never have imagined them having a phone while they're a teen or a preteen. They would give them access to everything, including pornography or crude humor, because you can't stop it. So now they're living in a world where we can't protect's a tough word to use. But in theory, I can't protect my children from that stuff. They've got to make better judgments on their own. But meaning that everything is accessible to you. Yeah. All the time.
And like you used to have to go seek it out.
Bingo.
And like that's the problem.
Maybe, you know what? Yeah, I did not think of it that way. So now we're kind of inundated with everything.
Yeah. And so you're going to get a lot of backlash, because I mean, if you're realistic, there's no joke that universally every single person thinks is funny.
Exactly.
Not a single one, but every single person is seeing the joke now. And so they're gonna have, it's kind of like some of the I also think it's trend cycles as well, with determining, like, I know there was that whole song, the Cardi B Megan Thee Stallion controversy last year, and I think the reason why that just got so big is because like somebody heard it and then they were like, this is what they're telling the kids. But like I don't think they didn't make that song for the children, obviously. It's not appropriate for kids. Like I think Cardi B doesn't let her kid listen to the song, and so that's the problem. Like you have to like really be on your game if you don't want your children to see it, or if you don't want to hear it yourself. It's impossible. Like you're gonna hear it.
And I think that's where it's so hard, because and it's so hard at the age I'm at, being in my mid-50s, because and I've said this multiple times, like the music I listened to as a kid horrified my parents, but it was but that stuff, and it was rock, it was Rick James. I was a Rick James fan and a Kiss fan all at the same time, and a Prince fan, and all three of those artists horrified my parents. Like they just were like, you just no way. And the Sex Pistols, throw that in there too. So everything was just, but so I lived that where these things were so abrasive and scary. But here I am, and I was, Cardi B stuff is just way over. If my child was, 8, I wouldn't want that on her phone.
Yeah, and it's like you're not talking about things being played on the radio necessarily. Like obviously it is, but like most of like you had radio edit and then you had the explicit version.
We did.
But like you're on TikTok and you have the explicit version, and everyone.
There's no more filters anymore. Like societal filters. They're gone.
They're all gone. And it's not even just for kids. But I mean, again, like if you were gonna go see an X-rated movie, like you knew you were gonna you didn't just happen into the wrong theater.
We had no access to that stuff as a teenager. We got the short change. We got short change. We had no porn that was like on our device.
So it's like, it's one of those things. And like, I think also like if you're going to go see, I would assume like if you were going to go see comedy, even like 10, 15, like you were going to see comedy unless you were invited somewhere.
Right. Right.
I think that's still the case. I think a lot of times sometimes people are new to it. There are times where you're performing comedy. There's a lot of times where you're performing comedy in front of people who've never been to a comedy show before and have no familiarity. That's
Well,
the other
for
thing.
surprise.
Yeah, because like a lot of people don't. Because I didn't have that much familiarity. Like
Yeah.
I listened to some when I was younger, and then like I said, I dated a comic for a little bit, but I still was very like I didn't know anything about it. I go to the Improv every once and again,
Right.
but you don't really understand what you're going to. And everyone still thinks, like when I told my parents, one thing they were concerned about, like, are they still doing coke? And I'm like, maybe I'm not doing coke. Like that's what everyone thinks.
Are you still freebasing? that Richard Pryor, he freebased, he burned his whole face off. Okay.
I'm not doing that. I
He
don't
was
even
doing
know
crack
what that is.
before crack was even invented.
Yeah. So like I get that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's a reason why people thought that about
Yeah, that's a good point. So you're making me think about it a little differently now. I think that it's very symptomatic of the fact that everything's available on demand now,
Yeah.
regardless of who the person is.
And like the hecklers used to just be at the show. Now they're
Online.
at their house and they saw a clip from 15 years and they're mad about it.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's not to say that all of the outrage is uncalled for.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it, there were a lot of things that I think were allowed just in every sector of entertainment for a long time, and people were not really listened to when they said they had a problem with it. Like, I know there was that recent situation, the guy who hosts Kill Tony, he said some very derogatory things about, I guess, the host of the show, using racial slurs. But he felt comfortable doing that, which is kind of a problem.
Yeah, I agreed.
And that's like where that's the problem, because like everyone gets caught up in it, and so everyone's saying like it's cancel culture, and I'm like, well, Tony, like, you shouldn't have said that.
No, you're 100% right. And I had Dr. Ruben Brock on, who's turned into a great friend. He's been on my show multiple times, and I asked him. I said, I'm a white guy. I have an African American guy, educated. You're a psychologist, sociologist. I said, would you please explain something to me? And I'm coming at you from a period of love and humility. I want to understand this about like joking. Naturally, there's a lot of things that an African American comic can say that a white comic cannot say. And I understand it. It makes sense. Can you understand why we have a lot of confused young people, a lot of confused young white people, because they're not getting good parental advice, some of them, about the understanding of why that material is not appropriate. So we have white urban kids saying things they shouldn't be saying in public, which they grow up not schooled. And we end up with some of the stuff we see now. Is there any solution to that? And he said, I was like, wow. He said, no, because as a white person, you can't say anything about it. And you can't, because you don't have the authority in society to say things should be different, because you're not taking care of your own. And we are at times very loose with words probably that we know are demeaning or whatever, but that's part of our humor, and we have context. So there really isn't an easy solution. I walked away going, I'm confused, but I'm not. Kind of made sense to me about how, but I can see where a lot of our youth are misinformed of history.
Yeah, very much.
And using phrases and terms that they don't even understand what that means.
Yes.
And I think some of them do it innocently because they just don't know, they haven't been taught, and some are not. But I think that's a problem.
It is. I hate to keep bringing TikTok up. I hate to do this.
Well, that's where it's proliferating, probably.
It's horrible because, like, I'll see people, even just antiquated terms that I were taught were racial slurs. I'll see other people use them. Like, you probably just learned that. Like, there's like
Do you know what even
a lot
that
of
means?
terms. Yeah, they don't know what it means. Like the one drop rule. Like, there are people who think that your race is literally based off of the one drop rule, which is like back in the day, like super it. And I'm just like, I don't know
really?
Yes, I've had to argue with people. I'm like, wait, no, what you're saying is actually like super racist. Like, I don't care who you are. Like, this is a problem. They'll say like race is only phenotypical. And I was like, race isn't even really that real. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you consistently get people's identities incorrect. They're using a lot of terms, like a lot of terms.
I agree.
And
that's where you're finding on TikTok, huh?
Yeah, and I'm seeing it, and I think what is happening is that, like, somebody did, like, a Google search, and then they didn't know to look past, like, the Webster Dictionary definition, or they don't understand the context.
Got it. Or they're using the Urban Dictionary definition of things, which that plays into, if someone likes rap, white urban kid really digs rap and doesn't understand the context of it.
And it's like all the kids. It's not even just white kids who are saying things, because I've noticed people have been using the term, like, white passing a lot. People have told me I was white, and I'm like, oh, where? Where? Like, and I think some of it is, like, trolls. So I think what'll happen...
I'm sure a lot of that's probably it too.
A lot of that is trolls, but the people using, like, terms like white passing, like, they'll look at someone who's, like, very clearly, like, not white, and they'll say, like, they're white passing because they're lighter skin. And it's like, no, that's different. I don't know what you're talking about. But I think the problem is you have uneducated people, and then you have people who are taking advantage of that, and they're spreading a lot of other hatred, and then you have people respond, and then everyone's like wants to be. I think the problem is that I think we've kind of lost this idea that anyone can have, like, an expert opinion on something and have, like, an actual, like, basis for their like, it's not a personal opinion. It's like, this is based on, like, studying and history and research, and then somebody else will come and say, well, my opinion is that your opinion is wrong, but it's literally just their opinion.
What's it based off of?
Nothing. And so what'll happen is, like, both of those voices,
but I have the right to say that, and my opinion is just as valid as yours. Yeah, but you're a blooming idiot.
That's literally what happens. And then other people are like, well, he does have the right to say, and it's like, that doesn't mean it's right. Of course you have the right to say. It isn't about your right. Yeah. It's about the validity of what you're spewing. Yeah. I get it. It's like a blind leading the blind situation. I don't think all of them are malicious. I just think they're very uneducated,
misinformed, sometimes intentionally misinformed. I think they're lazy. I think there's a lot of people that are lazy in thought in this country. Like, it's easy to take the TV and find a talk show host that they like and subscribe to that person. Whatever they say, they believe is gospel.
Yeah.
I don't think color even matters. It's someone they associate with in entertainment that they dig. Everything they say must be gospel.
Which is why I think why we have these other issues, because then they, like, put these people on pedestals and then expect them to have, like, the answer for every single question regarding society and the ills plaguing us. And I was like, most of them do. No. They don't have the answer, but they feel forced to answer this question, and they're not qualified to do so. And it's okay. You don't have to have an opinion on everything. You shouldn't have an opinion on everything.
You just said the essence of my being. Yeah. I am like the king of indifference, not in a negative way. Yeah. I just don't want to have an opinion or try to have an opinion on everything, because for number one, it's impossible. Yeah. And number two, it doesn't help the greater good of the narrative society if I'm voicing opinions that are off the cuff, that I have no basis in fact. Yeah. How am I helping society?
You're not. It's making it, and that's why these conspiracy theories are as wild as they are, because some of the things I've read, just, I'm like, I don't even know how we got here. Like, not to be like not even politically. It's just. It's just like, have you ever heard of this happening before? So why would it happen today? Why would it? Or, like, something will happen and people won't immediately know the answer, and I'm like, it's a conspiracy. And, like, sometimes, okay, I can get why you might think there's something sinister, but sometimes, like, you just don't know anything.
That's often that's often the case too. And it's the other thing too, which blows my mind, is that we somehow over the past decade, especially recently, we are quick to disbelieve science.
Yeah. But you know what? I was watching this movie the other day. It was called The Man I Married, and it was about a woman who was married to a German guy. Okay. And it was I think it was supposed to be based in 1938, but the movie was made in 1940. Okay. And so one thing that really struck me about that is, in the movie, it seems like the German husband, he didn't believe any American media about Germany. And he was like, it's not as bad as what they're saying it is. And so the wife was like, I just want to be fair and open-minded. And so they went to Germany. And I'm going to ruin the movie a little bit. It was a good
Continue,
movie.
please.
But they go to Germany and she starts seeing, atrocities. And part of the reason why she started singing is because, and the thing is, like, there were little hints the whole time where somebody would say something that wasn't like glowing about, Hitler or something, and they'd be like, well, you could get in trouble for saying that. I'm thinking, like, ma'am, like, you should be concerned that they keep saying this. And no alarm bells go off for her, but she meets like an American reporter, and he takes her out into the street, and she sees how they're treating, different people, and she's like, why is this happening? And he's like, yeah, like, you were one of the Americans who wanted to be like fair to the Nazi regime. And like, I just wanted you to see like what it was. And I think that's always been something. Like, I think that people have always had a distrust. And I think especially when you're talking about like the past, I do think that we tend to paint our history with like a very thick coat of glowy paint.
No question.
And so like everyone, because I never thought that there were Americans who were like, maybe Hitler's not that bad in the 40s, because I was just like, everywhere was saying it was bad. Like Looney Tunes was saying it was bad, Superman was saying it was bad, all the movies about it were saying it was bad,
right?
Everything you see about it. But at the same time, like, I think this is a problem that's always existed, but the reason why I think it's gotten worse is because we have more accessibility to these very fringe ideas. And
how did the fringe of, let's just say, right and left, no political parties or no candidates, but just right and left thought, conservative liberal thought, the fringe, I'm talking the fringe of both, how did their voices get so loud? Because all of us in that middle swath are really running everything, but we're letting these ones on the ends really like light up society.
Because there are people who have opinions on everything. And I'm not trying to be funny, but like, you can't look at any programming where they don't have a very definite opinion on something, even if it just happened. Like, even if you look at the news, like, they're going to start coming up with opinions on what happened, having no knowledge all the time. And I'm not going to say all of the news, but I mean, I think especially when you get into like the 24-hour news cycle, I'm not talking about local news necessarily.
No. I understand what you're saying. The big cables, the CNNs, the Foxes, the MSNBCs, or I get it. They pick a side.
But the other thing is, like, when it comes to conspiracy theories and like how people are actually getting into it's because they're putting in the effort. Like, you can talk about social media influencers and like how vapid they are, but those are not the only influencers. When you look at incels, which is a terrorist, that is domestic terrorism. And when you look at things like white supremacy in particular, the way they get them is through memes. They start off with these memes. Oh,
yeah, really?
Yeah, they start off with like memes on Facebook, Instagram, everywhere. And it kind of like it's a joke, right? And it like eases you in, and you get further and further and further and further.
Then it becomes legitimate in their minds.
And because the reason why, like, there's that saying, like, every joke has like a little grain of truth in it.
Okay.
But the problem is, I think what happens is with those types of jokes, the grain of truth is like, that's just how you feel about these groups of people. It's not that these people actually perform the stereotype or do what you said they did, but you already had
the bias.
Yeah. And so they just play on that, especially when you're talking about like fringe groups. Like, they don't come at you as if they're better than you. They come at you as your friend. And that's really where it goes. Like, if you look at any of them, they get indoctrinated online.
Yeah, that's how cults actually start.
Yeah, that's exactly what that is. It's the same thing, but it's on a larger scale. Like, I mean, if you're going to talk about like Jonestown, like, that could have been today, even more people. And that was in, what, the 70s, I think?
Yeah, I remember I was 78, 70. I was in Washington, D.C. that day, that weekend.
That's crazy. That was crazy. Like, that's really crazy when you think about it. Like, they killed a congressman as well. And obviously, they killed a lot of people. But, I mean, this is one of those things. Like, it was a big operation. And I don't think I realized that for a while.
The news moved slower then. And I was on a trip to Washington, D.C. with my grandmother in the Hotel Harrington. I'll never forget this. And it came on the CBS News, and she was an intellectual woman, which was horrified. Like, this is just, I didn't know I was 12. I don't know what's going on. But then learning about it in school, and you think, that could never happen here. And then we see the nonsense that happened in January this year in Washington. You're like, of course it can happen here.
Yeah.
Groups can have their thoughts co-opted and convinced and do crazy stuff. I mean, it's I don't get it. Like, it's so much easier to maneuver my life when I'm not pressed to have an opinion on everything.
Yeah. Well, the other problem too is like we're not even talking about the role that these tech industries are playing in this, which is a very significant role. Because I mean, part of the reason why you have an opinion on everything is because they keep telling you what the opinion is. So when you like one video, you're going to get suggested hundreds of other videos like that.
It's brain manipulation.
It really is, to a very large, like I did watch the documentary that was on Netflix. I can't remember what it was called, but it was people who worked for like Facebook, Google.
Yeah,
they were like,
I
this
think
is
I
how
saw
we,
bits and pieces. I want to see that whole thing.
It's good. It's scary, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I think I don't think we give it enough credit. We don't talk about like how significant. These are the reasons why people have opinions on everything, and they don't always know that these are bad opinions, and they get echo chambered. And so essentially,
That is the echo chamber.
and like nobody wants to argue with anyone who doesn't agree. Like I'm not gonna lie, I was in the trenches on Twitter, and I was arguing with people last year.
Yeah, that's the garbage dump of the internet, Twitter.
It really is. You can, if you're willing to do this, like you can change some people's mind. I changed a couple people's minds.
You
but
get
again,
a special award for that.
which is nothing, which is people not following me on Twitter. I like deleted my Twitter. But like there was this guy who was talking about one of the events that happened years ago.
Yeah.
And he was like getting down to the point where he was basically, and it's not even veiled anymore, but people like won't call like Nazis bad. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
there's an element of that. I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that during the last election, ironically.
Yeah.
When I saw splinter groups that were like, but I will say that when you know, I'm sorry to go there, but when you have a commander-in-chief who will not express how evil and use the appropriate words, which would be an assumption, of course they're evil. Well, why won't you just say it when you don't? When he didn't even understand that not, or maybe he did understand, but my point is that when he does not, an obvious racist group, if the commander-in-chief does not label them what they are and move on, but say it and, you know, say the obvious.
Yeah.
That gives, like you said, gives hope to those fringe.
That happened though. That's exactly what happened. Because
Exactly.
you had people who were in these organizations like, yeah, he's got us. And I'm like, what? Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Like that's a bad, but the problem is, I don't know, some of them, I'm just like, I don't know. The way you approach things makes me think that you are not always operating on all cylinders. At the same time, you are doing this with like a surgical precision, and you feel comfortable even like somebody recently said something about like you don't want white supremacists at like your cookout, and I'm like, no. They are not invited.
Yeah, right.
They are not, like but the problem with that too is
Why
like,
is that even like I don't think any rational person would want that. I don't care if you're blue. It doesn't matter what your skin color is. Nobody wants that.
they don't want it. They don't want to come. They specifically said, we do not want to go. We do not like them. But like the problem is, but the other thing is like, that's not, again, none of this is new. Like when I was studying in law school, one of the things I did, I actually went to the KKK's website for a research paper I was writing. They have a joke section on there, and they had a section where they were talking about, we have cookouts. Obviously it's whites only. And I'm like, I was like, you didn't have to say that. But it's
There's
like
material there, you know.
maybe one day. But I mean, that's how it's just been there. But it's also weird because on the website they spent a long time, like they had like a whole paragraph dedicated to like, we didn't actually kill as many people as they said we did. And I'm like,
Oh yeah, you have the Holocaust deniers. That nonsense has been going on for like forever.
they were trying to just like, we killed this many people. I'm like, you shouldn't say we killed anybody.
Right. But see, you see the skewed, and that's where I talk about those fringe. Their brains are almost. I mean, you hate to say things like this, but their brains are warped.
Yeah, no, they are.
How do you
Totally.
walk them back?
You don't. They have to
They're
do
lost
it.
souls.
That's something that has to come from themselves. Like
Without no question.
there was like this guy I was watching.
Hate's
his
a
videos.
funny thing, man.
It's great because
It's to study it.
Well, it is. It's a. Basically, it seems like the only way it'll work is if somebody who was a part of their group decides something different. Like there have been a few people who said that they were indoctrinated into like white supremacist organization or other terrorists, and the only way to get those people out of it is to have somebody they respect change. Or like have something very drastic change their opinion.
No
like
doubt.
I'm not going to go change that. I'm
because
not
the voice is powerful. The voice is more. They were one of their own.
Yeah.
And so their voice would hold more weight.
And it has to be innate too, because like the guy who I was watching, his parents were in the KKK, and his parents were like raising him like just straight up to hate all people of color. And even he said, even himself, like he felt like it was wrong. Like he did, engage and participate in things because he was a kid, and then as he grew up. But even then, I think he said he had reservations. But you have people who have no reservations, and it's like anything. I mean, once you get someone's mind, like you got them.
You know what's crazy too? This is something that I came. I figured this out as a child, and I don't know. Maybe I did hear it from somebody, but growing up in a very diverse town and having children from all walks of life that were friends of mine, and my parents intentionally making sure of that. It's so much easier to love than it is to hate. To me,
I think so
hate
too.
It's how I'm wired.
Yeah.
Hate is work. And I mean, on the face of it, take the right or wrong out of it, which is almost impossible. But if you take that out for sake of conversation, love is a natural thing. I think that humans, most right-minded humans, correct-minded humans, go there. Hate takes fucking work.
It takes a lot of work. You have to build a whole storyline.
Right.
And like you have to keep reinforcing that even when you see things that are outside of it.
Exactly.
And like that is a ton. And that's the thing. Like if you learn about any of these, like it's a lot of work. Like they're watching it, they're talking about it, they're engaging in it. It's a
job.
bunch of work. It's a full-time job.
So even if you really aren't a nice person per se, why would you want to engage in it anyways? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's illogical on its premise.
Yeah,
it's illogical to me.
I think it's just because like I think it's a lot of things. I think part of it is like, I mean, if you look at any of these organizations, like it's always like they want to blame someone for some injustice they feel like they're receiving, and so they don't want to blame themselves.
Jealousy, maybe.
I think some of it's rooted in jealousy, but I think the other part of it is just rooted in not wanting to take accountability for why things aren't the way you think that they should be. Like I was thinking about it earlier today, where it's just like there's so many people who truly think that when you're talking about intangible things like human rights, there's only so many slices of the pie. And when you start, cutting that pie up, like somebody's going to, but that's not how human rights work.
Yeah, right.
That's not a physical thing.
Right.
And honestly, if you actually look at the statistics, even with how we treat people, you're going to save so much more money if you treat people with love as opposed to hatred. Because like when you, like if you think about this, like you don't want to educate people, right? If you have an educated population, you're going to have more productive members of society. You're going to have people who feel like they have something going for them, who aren't hopeless, who want to do better.
And that's one of the biggest crux of our society, period, is the folks not understanding that everybody benefits. The more educated the populace is.
Yes, and they don't, because if you look at other, like people love to look at other countries and be like, well, look at that. They all kind of like each other.
In the Orient, to some degree, too, because their emphasis is education, such a strong emphasis in some of these countries.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, also, I don't want to say that the reason, because it's not true, but I think people look at them and they're like, well, they're like all the same, and so like they get along better, but it's like that's not
true.
That's not true. And like there's a lot of historical things behind that, but at the same time
they put a higher priority on education,
and I don't know if it's that they like each other. I don't think we always like each other, and that really influences a lot of the ways that we operate, and I think that makes it a lot worse.
We're real tribal on this planet. Like we're, and I've listened to some historians say that it's just in our genetics that we, one group of people, back, prehistoric man would see another group as the enemy. They're going to come. We looked at them suspicious. Our first inclination isn't to be kind. Our first inclination is to protect ourselves. That's what their philosophy is. I just don't know if I buy that.
Yeah.
I don't.
No, I never. I didn't either. Like, I studied philosophy in college, and like one of the things they would talk about is like the natural man, and like that's basically. And I was like, I don't feel like that's true. Like, I don't think everything's transactional, and I don't think everyone's a threat. Maybe that's naive, but
this is an oversimplification, so don't laugh at me when I say this, but I say it because I believe it. If you watch young children on a playground, you watch them play, you watch them, they are the most, they see nothing but another person to engage with and have fun.
No, they do. They really
So
do.
what the hell is wrong with us?
It's taught. Like, that's
Exactly.
that's all it is. It's
Exactly.
taught. I don't know what it. I don't
That's
really
a
get
no-brainer
it.
to me.
It is to me, because I remember one of the cases we studied was like the Dred Scott decision, and what we talk about of that case is not as bad as that case is. Like, I think it's like 100 pages. It's horrible.
Yeah.
And it's like there's so much vitriol. And I'm just like, where did this come from, sir?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you have not interacted with this
Yeah.
many black people for
Yep.
you to be this upset about
Exactly
it. Like,
right.
you just don't like them, but why? And like, that's what it is. Like, a lot of it's just taught over cycle. That's all it, because I mean, if you think about, like, let's look at other parts, like the Confederate statue situation. There are Confederate statues, I want to say in like 30 of the 50 states. I don't even think we have that many states in the Union. How is that possible? Some of them are in West Virginia.
Yeah.
It's West Virginia.
Yeah.
They left.
Yeah. Well, I've had this conversation many times. I'm not one for erasing history, but I am also not one for celebrating injustice. Like when you create a statue for a political, not political, a historical figure.
Yeah.
And that historical figure was not a good person. A statue is a celebratory thing. I don't know of statues that are erected as monuments that are for bad people. No one's making a statue of Hitler. You know what I mean? I'm not saying to change the history books. I mean, you can't wipe out what happened. You got to learn from it, but you don't celebrate it.
And it's
Same
like,
to the flag. You don't fly. That symbol causes pain to people. So what's the insistence upon causing pain for people? We don't celebrate things that cause pain. That's my take on it.
no, I agree. But like, the other thing is, like, we just forget again, a lot of that's just manufactured. There were West Virginia was not in the Confederacy.
Yeah, no,
Like, these states
you're
weren't.
absolutely right.
So where are you getting? It was the Daughters of the Confederacy. That's the reason why they're all there. But like,
yep.
again, and that was again intentional, because it's how important education is. That's a lot of work. Like, honestly, that's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. It's like, well, and to unwind there's no clear path to unwind. The only thing I can think of, it'll naturally unwind with better generations coming up behind us.
Yeah.
I hope. You know, it has to naturally correct itself, because it isn't going to happen overnight. There's going to be hopefully movements and things that happen to set us on better trajectories, I hope, but it's going to take time.
A lot. Well, I mean, I think the other thing is, like, people are starting to, it's weird because all this stuff is morphing at the same time too, because like we were just talking about the Daughters of the Confederacy.
Yeah.
They denounced white supprency, and I'm like, okay, we're getting real weird here.
How does that weird? How does that even?
I think they
Listen
had
to their
to.
name.
Well, they're like 501c3, so I think they probably had to, because they don't want to lose their funding, which is like another oxymoron, but we'll move on. But it's going to take a lot of education.
That's lunacy to me.
There's a lot.
Lunacy.
Like, you're getting tax breaks from the country you didn't like.
Exactly.
Weird.
Yeah.
Why aren't the Confederate states paying for it?
Yeah, send them the bill. See if you get paid.
We're gonna say, oh, it doesn't exist. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't. The celebratory thing cracks the thing. I just don't.
It
I
doesn't
think
make sense.
there's going to come a point in time where we're going to have to have some rational thought, because you could go all the way back to Jefferson and Washington, all of them, you know, and I can't. I'm not the arbitrator of like, okay, well, we leave we leave the statues of Washington, but we take out the ones of Jefferson. I don't know where the line goes, but someone who was a Confederate, someone who was fighting and professed the Confederate. To me, why would you have a monument or someone involved in that era?
It's because, again, it's like revisionist history.
Because that's celebratory. Monuments are celebratory to me.
But a lot of people don't think that these things are bad. Like, I've had history books that said Robert E. Lee was a Christian general who didn't actually think that black people were inferior. He just fought for the Confederacy because he believed in states' rights.
Well, that's always been the catchphase. But you can believe in state rights, but the bottom line is your other actions in your life don't warrant making a monument after your death.
But the thing is,
it's insanity.
People don't think it's that bad. And like that's the real problem.
Well, that is the problem.
Because like there's like even recently, I think it was Chelsea Handler. I think she had a video where she was asking people about it, and they were like, the slaves were like parts of the family. It was Big Mama's house. I'm like, then why they have to stay there if it was the family? Because it wasn't. But they really don't. I honestly think people don't think it's that bad. So when you're having that conversation, like I don't argue with people who can at least bridge that gap, because I think I'm not going to debate like humanity. But at the same time,
good way of putting it.
It's not. It just they think they have a legitimate argument when you debate them, and so I don't think it's a good idea to get into debates with people who are Holocaust deniers, or like if you know that's wrong. I'm not going to come and tell you, but
you have slavery deniers, people that believe that it's all a big story. That these people were brought over on boats to work our farms and build our roads and build our society.
And they were happy. And
they came with their own free will. And they weren't kept against their will. Yeah. And they were paid. I mean, this is the shit that I ever heard come out of mouths of people.
I don't argue with those people. I'm like, okay, bro. Like, you know.
Right on. You're living in a different parallel universe than I. That's when the word indifference comes in. Just when indifferent, trying to convince your mind of anything differently.
Well, the thing is, too, I think part of it's like that idea of like when you have to continuously tell someone who you are, like maybe you aren't that person. Like if you're like, I'm.
Like virtue signaling?
It's not even just virtue signaling. It's just like, they have to convince themselves of that, so they parrot these ideas over and over and over again.
They're still working on convincing themselves.
Yeah, and like because that's the only way they'll believe it. Like if you're like, I'm the greatest football player, and like I just like maybe you're not, unless you are, but like probably not. Like you're not Muhammad Ali, like boxing, like But like I think that's why they continue to do that, because they try to bait people into arguments with them too.
There's no question.
And it's like part of it's like, it's not just education. It's just like you want to. It's again scapegoating. You just want to believe it.
Reaffirmation.
You want to feel better about your grandparents. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't think about it like that.
Like it's stuff like that.
I did not think about it like that. Yeah, if you're in that could be a really uncomfortable feeling if you have relatives from that were down south that were slave owners.
Yeah, that would be really uncomfortable. But I mean. Especially if you're wealthy or like you have like some property or like.
Deal with it. I mean, that's wow. This has been a great conversation.
It always somehow leads to this topic. I don't know why I get so heavy so fast.
This is what I do here. If I did it, I apologize, because I usually start out. I enjoy speaking with people that will move the needle for me and get me to think not a different way, or maybe sometimes, but at least give me different avenues of thought, because believe me, I'll be pondering this for like the next 3 days.
I just spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff, because like I mean, it's when you really look into it, I think part of the reason why we have such a hard time talking to other people is because like it's all like a lot of what we believe and are taught is manufactured. Like even if you look at whiteness, like what does it mean to be white? Like Italians weren't considered white. Know. Irish people weren't. Benjamin Franklin didn't think Swedish people were white.
What were they?
I think he said they were of a swarthy complexion.
Swarthy.
It's the Swedes.
Yeah, the Swedes.
The Swedes aren't white.
They're about as lily white as you can imagine.
How is Benjamin Franklin white and they are?
Them and then add the Norwegians in there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. In the Finnish, they're up there. They're up there too in the Baltic area.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. No.
And we all think it does because we live in it, but that's why. So I think that's why we have a hard time, because you have to convince people to stop thinking and I sound like such a conspiracy theorist right now. I am not. But if you just follow the chain. I don't think that's a conspiracy.
I wouldn't view that as being conspiracy.
Because it is true, and I can back it up. But
you hear that?
Like I know which page of the textbook it is. Like if you want me to screenshot it.
And she does.
I got it. But no, but like all this stuff is constructed.
Yeah.
All of it. Like there were laws that were saying like white people couldn't be slaves, like, and then like there's so much. But it's everywhere. It's not even. It's in every single aspect of life.
Well, the most ridiculous thing is that the Constitution said at one point in time that a slave was worth 3/5 of a human.
Yeah, for taxes.
And people deny that. Like, if that isn't the most preposterous thing imaginable.
How are you like parsing this out? Like, this is so arbitrary.
It's almost like if you can't see how philosophically flawed that is on a human level, then the conversation pretty much is over at that point, because you can't be redeemed as a decent human being if you can't rationalize how horrible that is. Do you know what I mean?
No, but the thing is, at the same time, I think, again, this is why everything's so inconsistent. And it's because like, let's say, like, if you think of something like, what's it called? Like, the superiority of, like, superiority of white people, like, that belief system. Okay, so you're saying this, but at the same time, you have the 1 drop rule, where 1 drop of black blood makes you black. So wouldn't that make black blood more superior? Then, like, based on your logic,
that would require thinking, you see, and those folks don't believe in real critical thought.
No, and that's the problem. But like, again, that's how
logic.
It's all constructed.
Yeah,
and we lived in it, and so we can't. Like, I can't tell you everything you've learned is a lie, and you just be like, okay, tell me all the stuff, and be comfortable with it.
Do you think? Because I said this once on this podcast before, and I kind of believe this, that generations from now, when the intermixing of all races, when we all kind of look, this is the alien conspiracy thing now coming out, when we all kind of look the same, do you think at that time we'll maybe find some kind of like racial harmony when the races don't, when we all look relatively the same? Is that, because that's pretty, that's feudal. It's feudalist. Is that a word? Feudalist?
Yeah, I think that's a
fatalist. It's a fatalist view of it, maybe. Yeah, because that's going to be a long time before that happens.
I mean, I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, but I think until we like educate people, I don't think it matters what we're going to find differences. People already do that. You can have people in the same group and they dislike other people.
Us whites don't get along.
But like, that's the thing.
You shouldn't be. I mean, like, go to the Middle East, figure that out. And like, they're supposed to be white, right? Are they? Well, who knows? I'm just saying, though.
Well, the thing is, like, that's the other. There have been like lawsuits about whether or not different groups of people are white, and because I think there was one lawsuit where a man who from India was, I think he proved he was Caucasian. And the court still said...
How do you prove that?
I can't remember how, but I do think that he had like the scientific proof, like, because the Caucasus, I think he might have proved that his lineage, I don't remember. Please do not quote me on this.
Gosh.
If this is wrong, I apologize. But I do remember that he proved that he was, I believe, Caucasian, and they were still like, well, you can't be white. So like, I don't think it matters. And I mean, he looked like, he didn't look how we would describe white in America, especially during that time. But at the same time, like, he proved that he met the criteria that until we educate people, like, we're going to have the same problem. Because, like, colorism is still a problem in every community. Like, if you are in any community, honestly, you're going to be treated differently based on how dark you are. It doesn't matter if you're from the same group. And then there's so many arbitrary lines that go up, and it's all basically because you want to have a better life, like you want to be more assimilated.
So when you say colorism,
yourself.
Let's say with for lack of a conversation, within the African American community, do you say the darker the skin versus lighter skin, there's issues there? I mean, yeah, and it stems all the way back, because like, if you look, like, who are the house slaves, who are the field slaves, and then you go to the paper bag test, where it's like, I think you could get into certain sororities if you were lighter than a paper bag, and then that's a way. I never heard that. Yeah, but there's like a bunch of stuff. And I believe you, but it's crazy.
Continues.
It's crazy.
Even today, like, I mean, you have like people, like, apparently Chris Brown has made a lot of statements about how he does not like dark women. He does not think dark women are attractive. And he'll be like, no darkies allowed, which is like, oh my goodness, you what? But a lot of people do that, and it's actually accepted. Like, a lot of people been doing that for a very long time. And if you look at it, again, it's everywhere. But he can say
that, though, because he's African American.
No, he can't say that.
No, but he doesn't get the same pushback.
No, he is now.
Okay.
And that's
I'm glad to hear that.
He is now.
Okay.
But again, people are still going to make excuses for it. But that's, again, everywhere, because like, if you look at even like celebrities, like Serena Williams, people always said that she looked like a man, or she was so muscular and whatnot. And like, especially when you're looking at her versus like Maria Sharapova, which I know this isn't necessarily colorism, but I think they're relatively the same size. But like, yet Serena consistently gets slammed, and Maria Sharapova is like, oh, I'm so afraid of Serena. It's like, but you are like the same height as her.
Yeah.
And we accept
Absolutely.
that. So it's just, again, until we stop wanting that kind of acceptance where we differentiate ourselves from other people to make ourselves look better and feel better about ourselves, I don't think it's going to go away, because you're going to always have someone who's going to be lighter, or who's going to have some other characteristic, like blue eyes,
I get it,
whatever. So I think I don't know if that would be the
well,
answer.
I think white red-haired people have been slandered by Caucasians for gingers. That's been a thing forever.
Yeah, but I mean, also like how Irish people were treated in general anyway, and then that's like I don't know if that's where it came from, or because like there's
the craziest thing, but the stupidest thing in the world is for any white person to say, well, I don't know why the African Americans are so upset because my ancestors were treated like shit when they came. Well, you know what? What does that have to do with the tea in China? Because we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Things that are going on today.
And I don't think they understand how and why that kind of stuff changed. And again, you have to separate yourself from the more disliked group. Which is, I think a lot of times people would be like, well, at least we're not that group, and it moves the ball a little bit. There's a lot.
Well, unpack someone. This is so good, though. I really enjoyed this.
Me too.
You come back and see me for sure?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. And we did talk some comedy on here.
Did.
So how can folks reach you?
I'm on Instagram.
She's on Insta,
I'm on Insta,
as my daughter says. Insta.
I guess I'm on Insta, Facebook, and TikTok with the same username.
TikTok.
I do have a TikTok, and I go on. Okay, I won't.
Do you
lie.
sample new material on there, or do you try it out?
No. Because last thing I need is somebody either taking my joke or being like, "This joke sucks." I'm like, "Well, that hurt my feelings, so please don't come back." So I don't. Maybe one day I'll post like a clip, but I want it to be like a really good clip.
Okay. All right, so what's the handle? Is it the same for all three?
It's the same for all three. It's like it's at bfelds. It's my name, but okay. Yeah, it is my name, but like it's BFELDZ. That's how you can find me. DZ. It's a nickname I gave myself, and it stuck, so I'm happy about that.
And then you're back on stage here starting...
Oh, actually, this weekend I have 2 shows tomorrow night.
Where?
One of them is at SPNJ Lodge.
You may have this show up by then or not, I don't know. Where's that at?
It's in Boulder, PA at 8
Boulder.
o'clock.
Do you even know where that's at?
No.
Put it on the GPS.
I don't think I know how to say it. I think I said it wrong.
That's great. That is so great.
So, but yeah, it's at 8. I don't know any more details than that.
Okay.
And then the other show is at the Parkway Theater at 9 o'clock tomorrow
That's
night.
in the Rocks, right? Right down the road here.
Yeah, and so...
I'm so old, that place used to be called the 3D.
Really? Did it have 3D?
Ooh, the 3D.
Was it inappropriate?
Yeah. Well, it was, no, it wasn't. Well, it was a dance club.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that we were, if you even looked like you're 18 years old, you could get in there. So,
nice.
Yeah, it was, it wasn't the best.
Yeah.
Let's just say. We all survived, though. We're all here.
You're all here.
But thank you so much.
Yeah,
I really
thanks for
appreciate it. Come
having
back
me.
and see me?
Yeah, for sure.
For sure?
Thanks. Yeah, it was really fun.
All right, good deal.
All right.
All right, friends, we're out.
Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.